Oh, on my way to work this morning, the sun's just barely up. Might be a little bit bright on the screen, we'll see. Well, I was listening to a Metallica song that inspired today's thought. So what is on Paul's mind today? The Metallica song I was listening to is called That Was Just Your Life. And the very first line of the song says, like a blind man strapped into a speeding driver's seat. Or like the blind man that is strapped into a speeding driver's seat. I'm not sure if I got it exactly right or not, but hopefully you get the point. Sometimes my life has felt like that. Like, life is just happening to me, and life is moving on whether I'm on with it or not. So I felt like a blind man strapped into the speeding driver's seat. Don't know what's coming up. I'm not really in charge of this car or my ship without a rudder kind of feeling I've had a lot of my life. But in thinking about it, you know, life is about choices. The choices we make. Everybody makes choices every day, all day long. Little choices, sometimes big choices. Options, there's always options. In a Star Trek episode, original series Star Trek episode, Spock said, there are always alternatives. I think he said that several times through the series. That was one of his things, that there are always alternatives. No matter what the situation, you're never really trapped. There are alternatives. So I like that Spock quote. Here's a quote from Edwin Markham. Choices are the hinges of destiny. It sounded profound. I'm not sure exactly what it means. People think that they're destined to be this or that. You still have to make choices and still have to make things happen. I think it's important to make changes carefully instead of just off the cuff and impulsively. You know, there are choices that we make that we regret, choices that we're glad that we made. And how do we make choices? I tend to make choices emotionally. You know, I can write down all the pros and cons and make lists of information, and maybe I skew the pros and cons list for the choice that I really want. That's usually how I end up making a decision. Is that the right way? Is that the right way to really make an important choice? Just by gut reaction or emotional, what feels good? Sometimes some choices are difficult to make, you know, and if you always just go with what your gut says, that might not always be the right choice. You know, just thinking about how much of my life I've just almost been an observer, waiting for my life to happen, and life just happens, and I go along with what happens. Another Metallica song, James Hetfield, in the Metallica song Frantic, sings, if I could have my wasted days back, would I use them to get back on track? Wow. I like to find profound quotes in heavy metal songs and what comedians say, because they're there and they're applicable. I mean, everyday people say profound and important things too. Sometimes I just don't catch them. But I wonder, if I had my wasted days back, what would I do with them? Would I make better decisions? Would I be farther along in life than I am now? Thought-provoking. Neil Peart writes in the Rush song Free Will, if you choose not to decide, you still have made a choice. I know I've gone along and not wanted to make a choice, sometimes when it's a tough choice. But that's a choice too, isn't it? Choosing not to decide and just let whatever happens, happens. Is that the right thing? I'm not really sure. I want to take this to another level right now. Let me see who said this quote. Brandon Boyd. I'm not sure who that is, but he said, I think that there is something beautiful about mortality. It makes our decisions mean more. And here comes my heavy metal music quote. In Avenged Sevenfold's Acid Rain, Matt Shadows sings, life wouldn't be so precious, dear, if there never was an end. Wow, isn't that true? We are mortal. We are mortal. Life ends at some point. And that mortality makes the gravity of our choices so much more important, or so much more meaningful, because there is an end, and our choices do matter. Let's not make important decisions without consideration, but let's decide and act. What is a decision without action? Jim Rohn says, it doesn't matter which side of the fence you get off on sometimes. What matters is getting off the fence. You cannot make progress without making decisions. Sometimes when faced with a dilemma, it's too easy to avoid deciding. Wow, isn't that the truth? That last bit was me, not him. The more decisions that you are forced to make alone, the more you are aware of your freedom to choose. That's from Thornton Wilder, Life is about choices. Some we regret, some we're proud of, some will haunt us forever. The message, we are what we choose to be. That's from Graham Brown. One more quote, and I'll sign off. I believe that we are solely responsible for our choices, and we have to accept the consequences of every deed, word, and thought throughout our lifetime. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. I think I want to say that again. I believe that we are solely responsible for our choices, and we have to accept the consequences of every deed, word, and thought throughout our lifetime. Wow. Well, if you wondered what's on Paul's mind, now you know what's on Paul's mind.